Buenos días y bienvenidos a todos. I am Mitzi Jimenez, a member of Latinos in Architecture, one of several committees in the American Institute of Architects, Houston chapter. Today is the first in several short conversations in our spring series, where we will explore different professions. You might be starting to consider a career path or having to choose a track to focus on as you enter high school. These conversations are an opportunity for you to discover and learn. I hope you are ready to meet our first speaker for our Leah Fall series, a chat with a professional. We invite you to type in your questions during the presentation and we will discuss them at the end of the presentation. These conversations will be recorded and posted to the AIA Houston YouTube channel. Today we have with us Mariano Carranza. Mariano, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with us and tell us about your career path as a Latino person. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Mariano. I guess I'll start with a bit about myself. I put together a quick presentation, so I'll share that. Okay, so thank you for having me. My name is Mariano Carranza. I was born and raised in Lima, Peru, and I came to the US when I was about 18. I'll start talking about myself. I'm a filmmaker. I work mostly in the documentary field. My career has been mostly in New York for the past 10 years. I've been making nonfiction content, and I went to NYU Film School, to the Tisch School of the Arts. I got a BFA in film and television there, and then after that, for the past 10 years, I've worked. The first 5 years I worked at Vice Media, which some of you might know. At Vice, I was creating content about music for their music vertical called Noisy, food content and food documentaries for Munchies, which is their food vertical, and then science and technology documentaries for Motherboard. A lot of the content that I was making, by not necessarily thinking it in like a very conscious way, but in a way that I just kind of like gravitated towards it, ended up being stories about things that happen in South America, close to Peru, in Ecuador, in Bolivia and Mexico. And I think that's something that I didn't necessarily planned, but I think it just kind of like came about. You know, those are like the stories that I ended up gravitating towards, not exclusively, but like in a big chunk. These are some examples of my work. The first one is story I did about this character called Lukuma. He was like an ex-convict. He spent 30 years in prison for committing really hideous crimes, and then he kind of like found a new life through painting. So it's a story of from knife to brush, and all of my work is on my website if you want to like check it out later after presentation. And then I did this story about piracy and bootleg movie piracy in Peru, for Vice's Motherboard channel. I did a story about weed legalization in Uruguay, and then I did a story about food and culture in Lima. This guy is like kind of like the king of ceviche making in Peru. These are like just kind of like some photos of me in my day-to-day, like when I'm working, when I'm shooting. That's kind of, you know, like what I do. The first one is in San Francisco. The second one is in Bolivia. The third one is in Mexico. And then the last one is in Kentucky in the US. After Vice for 5 years, I ended up getting a job at CNN. I worked for their division called Great Big Story. Great Big Story was CNN's kind of like little brother. It was a younger approach, it was an attempt to attract younger and more diverse audiences to CNN. And so what we did was, you know, like these were kind of like our top performing videos. Like the third one, It's Me, Mario, like that. I did that one. It's kind of like the guy who was behind the voice of Mario. We did content for YouTube. We did content for Amazon. We did content for like a bunch of different places. And then I was there for 5 years making content about unusual, interesting stories. And then CNN changed. I'm sorry, CNN decided to part ways with Great Big Story. And for the past 6 months, I have been freelancing, full-time freelancing. I say here, GBS came to an end, changes to a constant, and be okay with that. So that's kind of like my story in a nutshell. You can see more of my work on my website. The first one actually of this slide I like, it's about indigenous Bolivian women who climb mountains. And the last one also has to do with Latin X identity. It's about a lucha libre wrestler who is also a drag queen. That's a thing that I keep in my mind all the time. At the end of the day, the most important asset for me and for a lot of creative professions is curiosity. So that's me. That's my story. And with that, Mitzi, I'll go back to you if you have any questions.
Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to know how you got into filmmaking. Like as a kid, did you know that this was what you wanted to do? Is this something that you just picked up interest as you got older? Like, how did you come to be where you are?
Yeah, I guess I was lucky that I really kind of like found what I wanted to do relatively early in life. When I was like about 14 or 15, I was doing photography, and I realized that the moving image was something really powerful, and it was something that I really wanted to do. By the age of 16, I had decided that I wanted to study film. And while Lima has some really good communication schools, I just couldn't really find a good film school that satisfied me to go to. So early in life, I decided to go outside and outside my country and study film. And I ended up going to NYU. So I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but yeah, I guess it was early in life. And yeah, what was the second part of your question?
Oh, I don't even remember, but it was just, I did ask you when you started knowing that you wanted to get into the industry, and like if you thought that this was what you were going to do as a child, like did you start out thinking, oh, I'm going to grow up to be a doctor, and then now you find yourself in the film industry type of thing?
No, I think I knew that I wanted to study film and work in the film industry kind of like relatively early in life. And I was lucky. A lot of people don't, when I've seen cases of my friends that when they were young, they didn't exactly know what they wanted to be. And I think that's also okay. It's okay to explore. It's also okay to take some time. Like each different person has their own different processes. And I think that's fine.
Yes. Okay, so you did answer my question, but you did mention that you said that you moved from Peru, right?
Yeah, from Lima.
From Peru to the States when you were 4?
When I was 18.
Oh, 18? Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up, I was born and raised in Lima, and
Okay.
I moved kind of like at the end of high school.
Okay, gotcha. So now that makes sense when you were saying that you moved to New York for school.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then as a kid, did you have a mentor, that told you, if you want to pursue this career, the best options, or was it all like a self thing that you came and learned as you went?
I don't think I had like one mentor, but I do remember a moment when I was in my teens, when I was like about 15. One of my brother's best friends, who I grew up with, he was like 10 years older than me, so he was probably in his mid-20s. He came to my house one day and he told me, "Hey, have you seen the movie that I made? It's premiering in theaters next week." And I was like, "What?" That blew me away. I was like, how come you made a movie like that? He was like, "Yeah, I wrote it. I was like the scriptwriter in the movie." And that was a moment that kind of like I feel it changed my life, because it made me realize that, like, before that, I thought making films was almost similar to like being an astronaut and like going to the moon. And when this guy came and told me that he had made a movie, I was like, "Oh, wait, so I can do that too. And I think that was a crucial moment for me. And I was like, wait, I want to do that. Like, how do I do that? Like, he was like, just watch a lot of films, try to go to film school, write, read, and but yeah, I don't know if that was like a mentor moment, but that was a moment where it made me realize I can do that too. And I think that's very powerful. I think, sometimes we grow up conditioned to think that it might be outside of our reach, but it's not. It's really a matter of like realizing that, like, if you want to do it, you can do it.
And were there any roadblocks that you ran across? Like, was there ever a moment where they were like, there was someone or that was just like, oh no, you can't, this isn't for you, like either in school or just like now that you're in the industry type of
Yeah,
thing?
so I went to high school that was not designed to kind of like facilitate studying abroad. And it was really hard when I was applying for colleges in the US. It like the process was like it was like not easy to apply to a college in the US, let alone NYU. So I remember when I was like 16, 17, 18, like that was really frustrating, because I was like, I want to go to these like really good schools in the US and study film, and like it just felt like the process was not designed for me. And it was really hard to translate everything, like from like even grades, like here, like it's just common that like you don't get A's because it's cultural, like you never get A's. And like in the US, like you're supposed to have like a 4.0 GPA, and like that just doesn't happen here. And like like we like our grades are like from 0 to 20, and like how do you translate that? So I guess one of like the bigger idea that I'm trying to communicate is that there were a lot of roadblocks, especially when trying to to go from like a Peruvian high school to American university. That was not easy, but I worked really hard to do that.
Well, you did it, and congratulations. You are where you are now.
Thank you.
um, you did mention that you were more focused, like most of your films are documentary types, right? So do you have any influence on the stories that you were telling in these videos? Like, I know a lot of them centered around like Latino culture. Um, so then, like,
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily think about it that way. It just kind of like happens. Like, I don't like just like sit down one day and I'm like, I'm gonna think about a Latino story. Like, I think it's more like the kind of stories and media that I consume kind of like inform my worldview, and it's just what's closer to me, and I think that's an advantage in a sense. Yeah, and I just happen to gravitate towards those stories more easily. Well, I also do tell other kinds of stories. It's not exclusively, but I think it's just the kind of things that I consume.
mm. I did watch the one about the Mexican wrestler.
I think,
Yeah, and so that was pretty neat. Like, it's not a topic that I would have gone out of my way to necessarily look for. So it was pretty interesting. But has there been a certain topic that you've covered that's been your favorite?
I don't think I can choose like one favorite topic because it's impossible. But like for me, like documentary filmmaking is like having this like superpower of like being able to just like parachute into strangers' lives and ask them all of these like inappropriate questions, and it's really fun. So it's like spending time with fascinating and unique strangers for a couple of days, and just hanging out with them and like getting a taste of their life. So in a way, it's like you're living multiple different weird lives. So I couldn't be able to choose one.
Mm. So then, I'm assuming you get to travel often, right, to do your videos?
Well,
Is that?
before March 2020, yeah.
Well, yes. Yeah. Is that something you imagine yourself doing? Like, I don't know, I guess when you were in film school, or like when you knew you were going to get in the industry.
I don't think I ever thought about it, but I've always loved to travel, so it just kind of like happened naturally.
Mhm. So have you thought about maybe if someone were to do a documentary on you, like what, you how you would like it to turn out now that you've done so many?
I will be very OCD, like trying to control what they're doing.
Yeah,
I
that
think we
I
have a question from the audience. If we want to do that, Anna is saying it is really impressive the amount of visibility of Latino culture, costumes, and its particularities through your different works, through channels like CNN, Vice, and Munchies. Kudos to you. I was wondering, how do you feel that your Latino identity helped you to position yourself through your career? I think that's a great question. I think it's helped for sure. When you're doing like certain kind of stories, like it helps you empathize in a particular way, like when you go and like do a story about someone that comes from like a Latinx culture, Latinx background, you just better understand their language, their jokes, I don't mean language in a literal way, but like in a larger way, like how they see the world, and I think that's an advantage, and that's also a bit of a superpower.
Mm. Did you receive any bad feedback from your parents or like your family when you decided to go with this career path?
So I was really lucky, and I didn't. I went to my parents and I told them that I wanted to study film, and they were like, okay, cool, find a good school. So I was really privileged and lucky in that sense. I understand that that's not always the case. And, you know, my word of advice would be like, don't let that discourage you, and just, keep pushing. Like, I think at the end of the day, for me as a filmmaker, my most important tool in the box is my instinct and my just like my hunch, my just following my instinct. And I would encourage younger people who are trying to get into creative fields, or really any field, to like really trust their cuts. I think that's crucial. And like, if you really want to study architecture or film or whatever it is, and your parents or the people who are helping you say no, and you really feel that you have to do that, then like don't listen to them.
So do you think now that this is like you've reached your dream, or are you still pursuing more?
I think, like the fun part about life is that you never reach your dreams.
That's true. That's true.
I've had some things that I've done that I really like, but there's always another thing they want to do bigger down the road. And if it wasn't that way, it would be kind of boring, I think.
Mm. Is there anything you would tell your younger self now, knowing, what you've gone through, like any advice you'd give your?
Um, I know it's a tough one. I would say, just kind of like don't be afraid, and don't, yeah. Let me think about that one. What would I tell my younger self? Just just do it. If you're hesitant, it's better to it's better to regret things that you did and you failed, than to regret things that you didn't do. And also, just be nice to people. Don't be an asshole. And excuse my French. And if you don't ask, the answer is always gonna say it's gonna. If you don't ask, the answer is always gonna be no. So just ask.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I mean, yeah, like you can't have any regrets, right? So I really do like that you mentioned, the whole curiosity, right, at the end of your presentation. So I think it's good for trying to get out there and doing learning from your mistakes type of thing. Um, so is there anything else you want to share to younger folks? I think you gave great advice on being nice to people and following your dreams, like not being afraid. So anything else you'd like to add before?
No, I think that's it. Be happy.
Yeah. Be happy. Well, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that you get to do many more interviews in the future
Thank you. Thank you for
post-COVID.
having me. Yeah. Thank you for having
So
me.
wish you the best.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for the students for tuning in. Hopefully this helps. And, you know, finding something to pursue a career in. So good luck. All right.
Thank you.